In this episode, we're talking about our authentic selves and what that means for learning and development. All this and more coming up on The Perfect Route. Welcome to the show and welcome to Dr. Rashonda Harris. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. How are you, Bill?
Doing great. It's been a good week, been a good day.
And that's always a good thing.
That's always all we can hope for.
Indeed.
Um, so let's start at the beginning with your origin story. What pulled you into the world of learning and development?
You know what? It's interesting because I didn't start in learning and development. I started in research administration. My curiosity about how people learn, adapt to systems, really led me to, change. And that's what pulled me in, just, my curiosity. And over time, I saw that learning isn't just about like compliance or content, it's about connection and capacity. And so, even though that was my initial uh, reason to look, I realized that learning is no longer just about transfer of knowledge. It's a transfer of confidence. I've evolved from teaching systems to transforming people really. So
Fantastic. Transformation, that's a big thing. All right, and I think that's all we can hope for with learning and development is transforming the people who learn with us. You've been doing this for a while.
yes, I have. I've been doing this for almost 30 years in research administration as well as learning. And, through my own journey, especially as a Black woman navigating leadership, I realized that, the most impactful learning happens when people feel seen. And so that philosophy has really shaped every initiative under Purple Sheep Consulting.
Fantastic. And that's purplesheepconsulting.com if people want to find you.
Thank you. Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Um, what do you think the learning function ought to look like? Who should it serve, for example?
I'm a really big proponent that learning should serve the learner. And what that means is, we all have very different ways that we learn. One of the things that I think really was my aha moment is when I started to learn and customize for neurodivergent learners. That really taught me that, we need to take a step back and ensure that, are we doing this for my benefit or the people who sit behind the screen looking to learn?
That, that's awesome to hear. I deal with my own neurodivergent conditions every day. I was diagnosed a few years ago, and initially it was a surprise, and then it all made sense. And, after a while, it helped me manage everything that I do. So, what, how do you think a learning function ought to be structured in an organization?
Well, I mean, it's a number of different ways to structure, but I think it always needs to be structured with the learner first, then the goal and objective of what the content is, and then the organization ensuring that it is able to capture and quantify the learning experience to ensure that, it's meeting the criteria that it was defined for.
Excellent, excellent. And learning and development always seems to get a knock, especially from senior leaders, because we deal with subjective measures. But there are some objective measures that we can use, engagement time, click-throughs, number of modules completed, competencies achieved, at least during the module. Um, one thing that came up in an earlier discussion I had today was making sure the that we ascertain how people are using those competencies in their roles later on. What any thoughts on that?
I mean, how people are using their role, using learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
well, I don't know, because I think like if I look at my how learning looks in my current function for me at Purple Sheep Consulting, it is different, right? So I feel like for learning at Purple Sheep is not just a department, it's in our DNA. So it flows through everything that we do, research administration, consulting, leadership development, and our mentor programs, because we're not just teaching people how to do the work, we're helping them discover why they belong in the room. And so for me, it's in everything. And so, when I look further into it, I feel like, our learning model rather has three tiers, and it's the organizational learning, which is customized to the institutions and their training frameworks for compliance and post-award operations, which relates to our research administration. And then we have our learning, our leadership development side, which is our workshops like Purple Sheep, that Purple Sheep Consulting provides. We have a number. For example, we have a Purple Winds, and that one is specifically designed for women who are exiting the workforce, and it's focused and built on strategic collaboration. And then we have our mentor ship empowerment, which is our programs like Black Women Who Mentor, where the learning outcomes are really to bridge into sisterhood and legacy. And so it serves institutions, individuals, and communities all at once, because that's the best thing about learning. It transcends silos, which we need to always remember that we shouldn't have in learning.
And transcending silos can sometimes be a tall order, but it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, what's a recent initiative you've been involved in that captures the strategic potential of learning and development?
I would definitely have to say it was Black Women Who Mentor. It's our signature example. It's not just a course, it's a movement that bridges leadership, sisterhood, and self advocacy. And it worked because we built it with, you know, heart and data, right? Where the strategy meets the soul, if you will, because our participants, they move through a 14-week curriculum where they learn to mentor with purpose and manage burnout and lead with authenticity. And the success really came from balancing the structure with the story. And so data informed the framework paired with the lived experiences. And that's what helped us really create a psychologically safe space for women where they could unlearn, relearn, and rise. Because, learning should be a safe space always.
Does resilience play a part in this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One of everything that we do, we actually is through what I call our program, We Are Her. And her is healed, empowered, and resilience. And
Hmm.
this is a program that is within that element, and it's one of many that we offer. So you heard me mention Purple Winds, you heard me mention Black Women Who Mentor, and I will also mention
Hmm.
Purple Crowns and Connections, which is also built into that healing method of We Are Her, because there are many facets of healing, and there's not a one size fit all, but they all do encompass the same, channels. And along the way, resilience is definitely a factor that is becomes our guardrails that helps to keep us, focused and going and moving forward.
And that everybody's got their own healing journey. We take it at different paths and different times. I've seen people take a long time to go on that journey.
Yeah,
For some people, once they turn the corner, they they make progress rather quickly, but it all happens on people's own time. And it strikes me that in organizations, we don't talk about this enough. I'm a big believer in emotional intelligence, for example, and that requires some healing in order to fully actualize.
for sure. I also like to say there's one that people don't often talk about is cultural intelligence as well. And I think that's a big one too, because sometimes, we think that healing and resilience looks the same for all of us, but it's actually very different. And it's broken down and really focused and centered around our lived experiences that have a lot to do with our culture.
What's a good operating definition of cultural intelligence?
I think cultural intelligence really strengthens your understanding across like diverse teams and lived experiences. It really emphasizes like how context of race, gender, and culture shape our communication and trust. It also should empower leaders to build inclusive systems that honor that authenticity, and not assimilation. Because in the past, assimilation was high up on the list, but
Hmm.
now I think more are prioritizing authenticity, because authenticity leads to deep creativity and exploration of what you may not have realized was inside of you. So that's uh, my feel of cultural intelligence.
And I love looking at corporate cultures that value authenticity, diversity, and people bringing their authentic selves into the workplace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say to your point too, I think it's important to say is that, clearly looking at us, the difference of demographically woman, male, and gender, how we identify, as well as our cultural, our race identification. I think that's even more important because sometimes
Hmm.
authenticity is not fully desired by everyone. And although they say, hey, I want you to be authentic, there are limitations. And that really is what has a lot of underrepresented groups more cautious about truly being authentic. And so I just want to put out that reminder that if you would like underrepresented groups to truly be authentic, you have to create a safe space.
And you mentioned the B word, that three-letter word, but which to me is always a red flag. And it's like you can take out everything that came before the but and listen to everything that comes afterwards, and that's what people truly want you to do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I much prefer so. The whole meaning of the sentence changes if you replace but with so, and and you end up with a more welcoming environment for authenticity, for example.
I love that. I do. I really, that resonates. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Um, I love substituting words sometimes because people, it, it, and this is something that's come up with me recently, um, that disconnect, especially in leadership, where the mission and values say one thing, and leaders might say the same thing but do something else entirely.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. You have to match the actions with the words.
It's troubling when there's a misalignment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's usually much more visible than people realize.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's glaringly obvious.
Yes.
Um, I can think of many examples in the press over the years where people have challenged what a company espouses that they'll do, and then there's what they actually do.
Yep.
And, but this happens in the workplace regularly, and I don't know if I want to classify it as microaggressions or just a lack of truth.
I think it's a combination of both because a lot of times what leads us to the microaggressions is the lack of truth and really understanding why we're here and what our core purpose is. I will say that a lot of people spoke about many different aspects of what should have been integrated into their cultures and their workplaces, but it was very superficial because when you look to find those pieces, they were not there. And so
Hmm.
that's what I mean, where it is a combination of both. Because if you look truly, you can find both. So
Yeah, and you know, I haven't seen many references to a 21st century organization lately. The implication there is that the 21st century organization is different from what we had in the 20th century. Sometimes it's hard to see the difference, at least for me.
I think it is. I think we've definitely been regressing. So
Hmm. And it's disappointing. This year's been a real challenge personally because I feel like we're just taking so many steps backward.
yes, we are. We are definitely big steps, especially as a woman. I would be remiss if I did not mention women's rights specifically. I'm also the mom of two daughters. So for sure,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that inspires me to work that much harder, and to bring my authentic self into these conversations and into the engagements that I have. Um, Often I'm met with acceptance. Sometimes I'm met with resistance, and that's usually a clue that about the kind of client I've engaged with.
Yeah.
Um, what are some big gaps or underdeveloped areas in current learning programs?
I think the gaps, and they are far and wide, but I can speak more to the gaps that I've seen, like with my programs specifically, because I've been so, when I tell you, I've been so head down focused on them. And my enrollment in my program has surged to nearly 400 women signing up for the
Hmm.
introductions alone. And so my team was faced with, the many challenges of just maintaining depth, in-depth and personal touches while really scaling for capacity. Because when you grow that fast, you have that you can't help but lose some of the personal touches that you want. And for me, that's the cornerstone of my business. I really want to be able to keep that personal touch so everyone feels like they matter, they are seen, because that's the beauty of being in my business.
Hmm.
So like I said, right now our biggest opportunity is scaling intimacy, and we've mastered connections in the small cohorts, and now we're digitizing parts of the experience and the self-paced option to like our reflection prompts and micro modules, so it can grow without losing the personal feel. And so I'm addressing that by expanding the self-paced course. I'm also developing the digital learning hub as a resource access, and then also introducing feedback dashboards and analytics to measure engagement. And so also been using my team to, streamline some of the back end support and the communication flow. So to, try to help it. And so we're expanding our reach without losing our roots. And that's really the goal I think everybody wants to, aim towards.
And it sounds like you're doing a great job with scaling.
Doing my best. Learned
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah. Scaling can be a real challenge, especially for firms like ours that try to be agile and nimble. But, you know, I think for anybody in an organization, scale is um, an opportunity to improve as long as you embrace it.
Yes. Yep. I agree with that. I definitely do. And I think when you're small like us, you have to be agile and you have to be able to quickly pivot because you don't have as much time to think about it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's something to be said for first having an open mind and be secondly being able to pivot quickly and being humble.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, every day is an opportunity for humility in my work. Um, because I sure don't know all the answers. And sometimes I know where to find them. Sometimes I can bring in other people to help me out.
Yeah.
But, it's a constant reminder when I encounter these situations that um, I'm I'm a networker at heart, and being able to lean into that network is super helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, at scaling in a small business, especially one that's rooted in purpose like mine, I always
Hmm.
say it requires like a balance of strategy, surrender, and self-awareness. Like Purple Sheep Consultant wasn't built overnight. It grew one relationship, one collaboration, and one faith at a time, because I'm very big on faith. And so when I first
Hmm.
started, I thought, growth meant expansion in size, more clients, more contracts, and more programs. But scaling taught me that, it's something deeper. It's real growth. It's about alignment. It's about, scaling it, it's not just about operations. It's about the changing the shift of everything. And so I learned to, pivot often, sometimes by choice, and sometimes, you have to do it by circumstance. But whether it's shifting from like, your personal, trainings, virtual leadership, or even academics, because as you know, I'm also an educator. I teach college
Hmm.
courses and such. And so, it comes in a number of different ways. And so even reimagining programs, like when I did Black Women Who Mentor, I initially thought that it was going to be one thing. I thought about it for 2 hard years, and I redeveloped it into a digital format. And I've learned that, agility is really an act of wisdom, not weakness. Pivoting doesn't mean you failed, it means you're listening. And I think that is key. And through every pivot, humility has to be the anchor, because running a purpose driven small business will humble you daily.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. That is such a great observation, and thanks for sharing that. Um, so, how do we measure the impact of all the learning that we're doing, especially the impact on business outcomes?
Well, for me, I measure the impact because I track both quantitative and qualitative outcomes across the platform in our learning engagements. And so at Purple Sheep, we really do measure learning through two lenses: the impact and the intention. And then we look for the numbers like completion rates, client renewals, or reference, recommendations, and institutional adoptions. And really, the true measure is in the transformative stories and career pivots, promotions, or moments of confidence that are regained. And I think for me, those testimonials hit the hardest. And so, great examples I could give you are like, institutional clients renewing a multi-year contract for continued training. That is a great testament to what's going on. Mentees from my Black Women Who Mentor program becoming mentors in later cohorts. And then
Hmm.
just seeing improved systems through collaboration is also amazing. And so, like, our best metric is when someone says, because of this I showed up differently. So
That is wow. Um, and I'll reference my earlier conversation about the subjective versus the objective, but I will take a comment like I showed up differently any day of the week.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um, so what does the future of learning look like for you?
I'm building towards an integrated Purple Sheep, Purple learning ecosystem. I want to combine technology, mentorship, emotional intelligence into different frameworks. And so the future of learning for us is hybrid, human and holistic. We're developing a digital lab where mentorship meets analytics, but humanity really remains at the center. I am a very, very big um, advocator for the human centered focus of everything, because at the end of the day we forget we're human, right? We start to look at
Hmm.
numbers and we start to forget that there's a person behind that number. So within the next 3 to 5 years, this should include a self-paced platform for institutional clients and their individuals that we work with. I'm hoping to do AI driven personalizations to adapt to the learning paths for participants. And then I want to expand Purple Harvest content into more guided reflections in a growth series. I'm an author, and my book is Purple Harvest: Planting Goals and Growing Truths. And it's also the foundation for which we use for our Black Women Who Mentor platform and that program. And so I'm hoping to create broader access through platforms, like my own that I've built to really stretch myself, but also, we're designing learning that really feels global in reach, but deeply rooted in personal impact. And so that's what I wanted to feel.
Excellent, excellent. Um, any closing thoughts for us?
Well, I will just say, Purple Sheep was born from the belief that learning should liberate, not limit. And so we help people, unlearn invisibility, relearn confidence, and really lead in color. And that's what it means to be a purple sheep: standing out, standing firm, and standing for something.
And it's purplesheepconsulting.com.
Thank you very much. It sure is.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Harris. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers did as well. If you've got comments, you want to direct them to Dr. Harris, look her up on purplesheepconsulting.com. And if you've got comments for me, leave them in the comment slot or hit us up on n3ed.com, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks to Dr. Harris today. Wonderful guest.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to join you.
You're welcome. And I'm looking forward to seeing all our viewers and listeners on another step in the perfect route. Take care.